Welcome back to the YTG Podcast.
Welcome.
You are new here, my name is Nico. I'm an automotive photographer and now amateur racing driver.
I'm Sean, and I am the owner of this lovely shed in Keysborough, YTG Youngtimers Garage.
Here
Welcome.
on the weekly-ish YTG Podcast, we're going to give you the sort of inside scoop inside the automotive industry in Australia, as well as some fantastic stories. Motorsport, anything car related. So, and a bit of electric car hate. So yeah, join us on another episode, and we hope you enjoy. All right, welcome back to the YTG Podcast. You'll notice we're missing someone. Sean's not here with us. He's coming. He may walk in halfway through this episode, or you might see him next week. But we're back, and we have a very special guest sitting across from me, which I'm going to introduce in just a moment. I'm very excited for that. But first, we just want to very quickly mention we need to honour a gentleman by the name of Jack Vallant, who died just recently. He was a friend of YTG's and a friend of myself, and we thought that we needed to at least honour him and remember him. He was the sole operator of Rev Moto, the motorcycle giveaway company, and unfortunately he passed away in that tragic twin-turbo Audi R8 crash in Altona, which you might have heard about. But yeah, he was a fairly fantastic guy, and he was going to do big things for this whole industry. I'm sure there'll be a fair few people listening who knew him or knew of him. So yeah, we just definitely wanted to make sure that we had made note of that and honoured him. So we'll get straight into the episode, and I'll introduce my wonderful guest, Mr. Colin Clark. You will recognise his voice without a doubt. So please introduce yourself.
Nico, that's very kind of you. Really kind of you to invite me along. And I have to say, been here once before, but it just gets the old hairs on the back of the neck going as soon as you walk through the door here. My sport's rallying. Very much involved in rallying, particularly the World Rally Championship. I do cover a lot of Targa, mind you, here in Australia.
Yeah.
But I've been doing rallying for 20 years in the media side. Before that, I was involved from a sponsor side. There's actually a car. It's not down behind us, it's on the other side there. That reminds me an awful lot of my days in sponsorship working with the 555 Subaru World Rally team. So, yeah, I've been pretty heavily involved in the sport of rallying for 20 years and love every minute of it. Still get as excited today as I got that first time that I went on a rally. 22 years ago was the first time I went on a rally. It was quite late to the sport, strangely, but once I got there, it was like, yeah, that's it.
So you didn't start your working life in motorsport?
I didn't. I started my working life working for a tobacco company in sales. I went to university. I got a job straight out of university with a tobacco company in sales, and then always wanted to be involved in marketing, so got involved in brand marketing.
Tobacco company. There we go.
Man, honestly, when I think about the money that was involved in those days, it's never been replaced. Motorsport has suffered, since the tobacco companies were forced to pull their money from motorsport. We spent fortunes, absolute fortunes. So I got involved from brand marketing then into sponsorship and promotions, and part of that was looking after the 555 Subaru World Rally team. So
that's epic.
So the first rally I went on, knew nothing about rallying. I was basically told a couple of days before Christmas, look, we're getting back involved. There were 2 iterations of the sponsorship. The really successful one with McRae and the world titles and all the rest.
Yep.
And then the not quite so successful, a little bit more low-key return in 2002, which is what I was involved in. And before Christmas, I got the phone call saying that we're going on the site of the rally car again, make it happen. And that was it. And
wow.
At the time we had, and this was all to facilitate the deal to take David Richards, who was the boss of ProDrive, to take him to our Formula One team, to the BAR Formula One team.
Wow.
Because we'd been around for a long time, 3 years, not a long time, 3 years in Formula One, achieved nothing. And our global marketing director wanted David Richards to run the Formula One team.
So the tobacco company controlled who was in and moved people across teams and...
Well, effectively, the tobacco company bought didn't physically buy, but in terms of, I'm going to give you a bundle of cash to buy you. So they bought the whole of the upper management of the ProDrive rally team. So the guys that in 2001 were looking after the rally team, the whole of the upper management went across to BAR. Wow. So their marketing director became the marketing director of BAR. David Richards became the team principal of BAR. Hugh Chambers was there. Colin Clark was another Colin Clark. That got really confusing. Another Scottish Colin Clark. There were two of us. And and Nick Fry, he was another one that came from ProDrive. He actually was I think after David Richards, I think Nick Fry was principal at Mercedes, I think, team principal for a while. Certainly somewhere. But they were all rally men. They were all part of the rally team.
Full on.
And so part of the deal to take them to Formula One involved the rally team going back under the auspices of the 555 sponsorship, but nobody was interested. Literally, no one in BAT was interested in the rally team. So it was given to me, and I was, I was, it was my own little kingdom almost.
That's
for
awesome.
2-3 years, because all they were interested in was this incredible Formula One team that had cost. I won't tell you how much it had cost over 3 years, but
It would have been squillions.
yeah, not far off. It was many millions of dollars. Man. So yeah, that's how I got involved in. And my first rally, I remember turning up. It was Monte Carlo, and we turned up and stayed in this beautiful hotel. And the first morning, I went down to the service park, which was on basically as you come past swimming pool and along the front there on the Formula One circuit around Rascasse. That was the service park for the Monte Carlo rally.
Right. And in Monaco?
In Monaco. Actually, down on the waterfront.
Whoa.
In Monaco. No, it's incredible.
They don't do that anymore, do they?
Not so much. It just seems to be logistically quite difficult. And it's a shame because it was a proper statement for rallying. But yeah, I went down and the service area was there and it was great. And David Richards was there and he said, "Hey, Colin, would you like to go for a ride in my helicopter?"
Excellent.
I've never been in a helicopter in my life, but we'll give it a wee go. So I went round to the heliport and I jumped in this helicopter and there were 4 of us plus the pilot. It was all a bit bumpy and we were going up to the Col de Turini, one of the most famous stages in rallying. Multiple hairpins across the top, there's always snow. It's a fantastic stage. And we're going up and down and you can't find anywhere to land this helicopter. So we are literally following rally cars up and down. I'm thinking, this is great.
So you were while the rally was happening, you're following the cars.
Following the cars up and down.
Right.
And
Which
I
is
know
the only way to watch rally.
Absolutely shit all about rallying at this point. And I'm sitting next to this little man who was probably in his 70s, 60s, late 60s at the time. And he's asking me questions and I'm trying to answer them. And I'm asking him questions. He's answering all of them and he knows everything. And we eventually find a vineyard. It was a little vineyard to put the helicopter down in. And we get out and he's watching the cars and he's telling me all about, that guy's overdriving it there. He's pushing a bit too hard. They're braking too late or too early there. And I said to him, you know an awful lot about this, don't you? And he went, yeah. He said, yeah. I've done a bit of rally driving in my time. And I went, okay. And we chatted a wee bit more and we were talking away. I said, so what have you done? He said, well, actually, I won this rally. And it was Paddy Hopkirk who won the 62 Monte Carlo rally in the Mini, the legend. I spent an hour and a half with this absolute rally legend.
And you had no idea.
And he was the nicest man. He was the nicest man, little Irish guy, very softly spoken. And that was my first introduction to rallying, was with Paddy Hopkirk in a helicopter on the Col de Turini. It went downhill from there. Yeah. For me, that was good enough. If I'd retired from rallying at that point, I'd have been a happy man. That was it. And at that point, I was completely and utterly hooked on the sport.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. There haven't been many helicopters since, but it doesn't matter how you turn up to a rally stage, whether it's in a car, on a motorbike, on foot, however you turn up to a rally stage, there's always still that buzz and that excitement. And you see those cars, you hear them, you smell them. And it's like, this is a bit of a different type of motorsport. Yeah,
I've worked a fair few of the Australian Rally Championship rounds with Motorsport Australia. And the vibe in the
service park.
In the service park.
Yeah. No, you have to get you're a circuit man, so I'd forgive you if you said the pit lane. I'd have just about, if you'd called it a race, I'd have maybe kicked you. But you'd have got away with saying service park, not service park, pit lane.
Yeah, no, it's something different. It is something different. Special. It's
there's rallying. You're a single seater man. You race single seaters. You were showing me the pictures of these fantastic cars you're racing this weekend. And they are amazing pieces of engineering. But rally cars, it was always the old adage, wasn't it? Win on a Sunday, sell on a Monday.
Yeah.
Because you could go out and, Ari Vatanen in the 205, you could go and get yourself a GTI 205 on a Monday morning and pretend you were Ari Vatanen. Yeah. You could get a Subaru STI WRX on a Monday morning. And those cars that you see on the stages, underneath the skin, they're a wee bit different. But, it's the same cars. They're born and bred. Yeah. From the road cars. It's the purest for me. the purest form of motorsport. I know there'll be a lot of people that argue about that, but we're on roads that are open to the public. You and I could drive every single road if the Australian Rally Championship. You and I could go out and drive them, and we could drive them in cars that are more or less not the same, but very, very similar to the cars that are winning. The GR Yaris,
Yeah.
We could take out a GR Yaris and go and drive wedding bells up near Coffs Harbour and have loads of fun.
Yeah.
I can't go and take a GR Yaris around the circuit you're going to drive this weekend. I appreciate other forms of motorsport, but for me, rallying is the purest. It really is.
I think from a skills perspective, totally. They are the best drivers in the world, without a doubt.
I think so. Now, I've met, and I'm friends with one or two Formula One drivers, but I've met a number of Formula One drivers that have come into rallying, and it's astonishing how few of them succeed. And that's not taking away from their skills, because there's an enormous amount of skill needed.
It's just a different skill set.
It's a calculated skill in Formula One. You calculate, and it's about absolute precision.
Yeah.
But when you think a rally stage, a 25, 30 kilometre rally stage, conditions changing, from car to car, in terms of the surface, the weather, whatever it might be, the development of the road. And you get three drivers in completely different cars setting times over 25, 30 kilometres that are within 100th of a second of each other.
It's crazy,
How
isn't it?
does that happen?
Yeah.
It's just instinct and skill.
Yeah.
The problem with Formula One drivers, and it was the massive problem with Kimi Räikkönen, I liked Kimi Räikkönen because he was a bit of a rebel. A man after my heart. I'm a wee bit of a rebel. I know sometimes I don't look like it, but I am a rebel. But Räikkönen was a complete rebel. But Räikkönen came into Formula One, into rallying, into World Rally Championship, thinking that pace notes, it's just extra weight in the car. You sit there. Read them if you like. I will drive to what I can see and what I can remember. And he never, ever, ever got the hang of pace notes. Had absolute trust in the guy sitting next to him.
Yep.
Now, you look at Robert Kubica, completely the opposite. Robert Kubica is just, for me, I don't really have heroes in life. I don't think it's healthy to have heroes. I think you achieve what you can achieve yourself.
Yeah.
And you appreciate what you can appreciate. But to hero worship people is a bit strange, I think. I get it sometimes, but I think it's a bit strange. But Kubica is the nearest thing that I have to a sporting hero and a rallying hero, because he's disabled. He's disabled.
Yeah.
If you meet Robert these days, after that horrific accident he had, he's disabled. His right arm doesn't work.
Yeah.
It just doesn't work. Mm-hmm. But what he achieved in rallying was incredible. And his attention to detail in how he approached rallies, he understood every aspect. He took the professionalism of a Formula One paddock and brought it to rallying.
Yep.
He read every single word of the rules to work out where he could get an advantage. He would go out. So traditionally after a rally's finished on a Sunday, certainly in the McRae days, the McRae and Vatanen and Cankern days, you would go out and you would get properly leathered on a Sunday night. It doesn't happen so much these days. Most of them just jump in their jets and head off. Well, I say most of them. There's only a couple of them that have got, actually there's only one that's got access to a jet. The others will get on their jet stars and head home.
Yeah.
But Kubica, almost the second the rally was finished, would head back out, get his recce car, head back out into the stages. And it was like, a friend of mine, George Donaldson, he used to be the sporting director at Subaru. Before that, he was the team manager at Toyota for many years, very successfully. And he knows the rule book inside out. And I phoned George up and said, Kubica's doing this. He's going out as soon as the rally's finished and driving the stages again. That's illegal wrecking, is it? And George went, no. It's probably, first of all, he said, yeah. He said, you can't do that. No one does that. You can't do that. You can't go straight out and drive the stages again, even if they're public roads, because
all the fans
restricted.
are coming back on.
Fans are coming,
right?
not quite as early as that. So the fans have all gone. So we're talking Sunday evening and then into Monday morning.
Okay.
But the question mark there is over what they call illegal wrecking. So you're only allowed to see the stages twice before the rally starts.
Yep.
And that's controlled, very much a controlled environment. And if you go into the public roads, as I said, so there's nothing to stop you going in and driving round and round and getting to the road. But if you get caught, that is the most heinous crime in rallying.
Yeah,
illegal wrecking
Yep.
is treated really, really seriously. So it's like, George went and looked at the rule books and he went, no, he's hit on something here, because you are allowed, until a road is nominated for next year's event, it's an open road. So the illegal wrecking doesn't start until that event says, this is our schedule for next year. So you 90 certain rallies, not Rally Australia, but certain rallies will go back the same roads year after year after year, but they won't publish there until maybe 8 months before the event. And Kubica worked that out. I said, no, I'm not illegal wrecking because that road isn't down to be on next year's event. He knows it's going to be. He knows it's going to be. So, and his point there was, when you recce the roads, you're wrecking the roads in perfect condition before the event. So you get your 2 passes, your 2 official passes before the event. They're in perfect condition. He said, by the time I get to them, they're rarely in perfect condition. So by recceing after the rally's finished, I see where the rocks are being pulled out. I see if it's been raining, where the water's gathering. I see where the cuts, where you're taking cuts and you're actually going too far and you're finding big rocks.
Yeah.
He was just the cleverest driver, and he had to be because he had this disability. He never let them have backward-facing onboards, facing the driver.
Yes, I've heard this.
Because of the way that he operated the sequential gearbox, as it was back in the day, and he had no power in his right arm, so he used to throw his shoulder forward and then pull his shoulder back. It all came from his shoulder. He could throw his shoulder to push it forward and pull his shoulder back. And I never saw this, but I was told they would effectively tape his hand
to it.
onto the gear stick.
Yeah.
That may or may not be true, but that's what I was told. He was a hell of a guy. But as I say, a lot of Formula One drivers have come along without that sort of, I'm going to blow these rally drivers out of the water.
Yep.
I'll tell you now, the best motorsport exponent in the world right now, without any question of a doubt, and I'll take Max Verstappen into this as well, is Kalle Rovanperä. Kalle Rovanperä could get into any car in any series in the world and win. Wow. I guarantee you, that guy is a freak. He is an absolute freak. What he's doing in rally cars right now at his age, 22 years old, world champion at 21 years old in rallying.
Far out.
What he is doing in rally cars, and he gets out the rally car and he goes drifting. And I know drifting's not everyone, but I've got a new appreciation for the skills involved in drifting. But he could get into single-seaters, and he will do. He won't hang around you. With Sebastian Loeb, 9 times world champion, succeeded by Sebastian Ogier, 8 times world champion. Rovanperä is going to win this year. That'll be 2 times world champion. He'll stay another year or two, and he'll go off while he's young enough, and he'll do something else. And he'll do single-seaters, he'll do drifting, and he'll come back in 10 or 15 years' time, and he'll win more world titles then. He is just an absolute freak of nature who understands without having to think about it. The little story I told you about Colin McRae before, or you were telling me, I'd heard the story before. McRae had an analysis of his brain, psychoanalysis, or whatever, not psycho, whatever, of the way his brain works, basically.
Yeah.
And it was an eminent psychologist or whatever that did this study. And the guy came onto the program that had commissioned the study and said, look, he said, I don't know what's going on here. He said, I've been in this game studying brains and brain patterns and brain waves and the way brains work for 40 years, and I've never seen anything like it. He said, there's a, an absolute way that the brain works, the optic nerves work, the hands work, and it's all to do with signals. Your brain, your eyes pick up the signal, goes to your brain, it goes to your hands then do what your brain and your eyes tell you, and it all happens in milliseconds. He said, that's how it works. He said, physiologically, that's how we all work.
Yeah.
He said, but I've had McRae here for a week, and there seems to be one of those processes that's bypassed.
Incredible.
So he sees it, and his hand does it. There's a signal that's not there.
Yeah.
And he said, and his final conclusion, which was something that I never ever forgot, he said, you could put me in a rally car for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week for the rest of my life, and I would not be able to do what he does.
Yep,
because he is wired up that way.
Yep.
And that is the same with Rovanperä. Rovanperä doesn't think about any of this shit. He just does it. It just comes to him. It just happens.
Yep.
He gets in a car and he understands how it works.
Yep.
But I would always bet on a rally driver before a Formula One driver. And as I say, that's not taking anything away from Formula One drivers.
No, they're still incredible.
Yeah. They're brave guys. They're brave guys, Formula One drivers, but rally drivers have bigger balls. There's no question about that. They have bigger balls. And at times what they do, it's beyond me. It's beyond me that they manage to, somehow just forget about the risk involved. Because there's no question, any type of motorsport has a level of risk. And that level of risk is increased when you go rallying. But these guys are able just to forget about that and just drive flat out, 120 mile an hour, 200 kilometers an hour on roads that you and I would think twice about walking along.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
danger's
yeah.
so high.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's when you see it up close and personal like that, it's something a bit special.
Madness.
Yeah, I think so. They're a clever bunch and a good bunch of lads.
They are.
I don't know if they're clever. That's maybe not the right words. I think some of them are not very clever, which probably helps.
Yeah, 100%.
The very best drivers are incredibly bright, and that's what
Yeah.
makes a champion. It's that combination of natural ability, of intelligence and bravery that makes a great champion. But I do think that if you are able to blank out the risk element, then then you win.
Yeah.
Rovanperä does that.
Just a little bit of crazy.
Yeah, a little bit of crazy. A little bit of crazy. A lot of crazy in some of them.
Well, it's a shame that the Australian element of the WRC is probably gone.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Australia just now, to be totally honest with you.
Mate, the whole landscape.
I just don't know. You've got the Australian Rally Championship, which on the face of it is reasonably healthy. You've got good entries.
I've been there. Yes, but it's not WRC.
No,
It's a long way off WRC.
It's a long way, but you need a decent and a healthy national championship to give you the infrastructure, to give you the people, to give you the impetus, to give your sporting body, your ASN, Motorsport Australia, the impetus to actually be bothered to go chasing the WRC. No one in Australia right now is bothered.
Yeah.
And it really concerns me because you've got one of, I think, the strongest rallying communities anywhere in the world.
You really think
Oh
so?
man, you've got a wonderful community. I went to I covered the Rally of the Heartland in South Australia. And
Right,
it was
the last
just
time you were
magnificent.
here.
So the last time I was here, and it was just a wonderful rally, and it's for classic cars, I guess. It's two-wheel drive, non-turbocharged, but some unbelievable machinery being driven unbelievably hard. 450 kilometers, little over 36 hours. How rallying should be, and there was 100 and something entries for that rally. The Alpine Rally down in one of the world's oldest rallies, the Southern Hemisphere's oldest continuous motorsport event.
Wow.
Who knew that? Who in Australia knew that? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. I think it's the third oldest motorsport event still running in the world after Monte Carlo and something in America.
Full on.
I went there at the end of last year and 120 entries and just a fantastic community. Fantastic community. And as I say, you've got a national championship, which on the face of it doesn't look bad. It does have its issues. But you've got a governing body who you guys were ahead of the curve when it came to social media. So, for example, Rally Australia identified Facebook as a really important communication tool, rightly so.
Yeah.
Because Facebook is about community when it comes to motorsport. Really important tool.
Yeah, and you just can't watch rally.
No,
you can't.
No, and if you're going to build interest, which is what you have to do with rallying, particularly in Australia, because people have to go to some lengths. It's not like getting in the car and driving to North Wales from Birmingham or from London. You're getting in the car, and people do it. They're driving from Western Australia to Coffs Harbour.
Yeah.
To watch rallying, but you've got to build an interest, and the guys that ran Rally Australia 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, understood that, and in terms of the social media leaks with various top-class rallies, and Australia regularly won the title as the best organised rally in the world.
Wow.
Rally Australia, the best.
I had no idea.
So they recognised the need, and they built this incredible Facebook community with something like 400,000 followers. And then they allowed it just to go. They just dropped it. Motorsport Australia just decided we don't have a Rally Australia anymore, and you go and look at that page and you see when it was last updated. For me, it's a crime. It's a crime because what they showed was that there's interest. What they showed was that there's community. What they've showed continuously is they know how to put on one of the best rallies in the world. Politics, I suspect, gets in the way. Yeah. And all of a sudden Australia, which rallying is about diversity. You'll go racing at the weekend on a black bit of tarmac, and it's a slightly different configuration to wherever, to Silverstone, to whatever, but it's a black bit of tarmac. We go to the most diverse parts of the world, and we have a different looking rally every time. And Australia always offered us something very, very different in the World Rally Championship. And all right, the argument was always, well, the car market's a limited size. Yeah, that's one element, and I'll buy that. You know, it's an island of whatever, it's 25 million people. But it's the TV audience, the supposed TV audience that World Rallying has, 600-700 million around the world. Surely that is what really should dictate where we go with the calendar.
Yeah.
And what keeps the calendar interesting, what keeps people engaged is the diversity that we have. We go from Sweden at -40 to Australia at +40 occasionally. And Australia just always gave us something completely different. And then it was dropped. And I tell you now, it ain't coming back. And it's an absolute crime that it's not coming back, because there are dozens of other countries that have a lot more ambition than Motorsport Australia have right now. A lot more ambition. I don't know if there's anyone in Motorsport Australia, and I don't want to sound too heavy on them, but I just get at times frustrated with the politics of it all. You know, yeah, it comes down to finances, but more than that, it comes down to will. You want it to happen, it will happen. I'll tell you now, there are enough people around the Australian rallying scene who, if you actually ask them to get involved, you know, men and women who are well-funded, who are absolutely fanatical about our sport and are prepared to put time and some of the money into our sport to bring Rally Australia back. If you ask them as the governing body to get on board, to come along, to give us some help, that's something that you know, the governing bodies are very reluctant to ever do, because they know the best way every time. So they never ask for help, you know. They just assume they know the way forward. You go and ask a few people for a bit of help and you will have a round of the World Rally Championship. But if you don't, and you continue the way you're going, it will never come back. Ever. And it's sad. It's sad because it offered rally fans around the world something different. And it offered rallying in Australia guys like Chris Atkinson, who came through, and guys like Brendan Reeves, who didn't quite make it, but Brendan was a very talented driver.
Oh, mate.
You've got Harry and Neil Bates, talented drivers. But we're not going to know how talented, because they're not up against the best drivers in the world. And it's a shame, you know, and you need to have those headline events coming to affect the grassroots and to bring through the youngsters.
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. I don't get it. I just don't get it. Well, I do get it. It's, you know, politics gets in the way all the time.
Yeah, I think exactly what you're saying about Motorsport Australia, most people are feeling that at the moment. In several areas, they seem to just completely be dropping the ball.
I'm reasonably heavily involved in Targa, and it's a very contentious issue just now.
Yeah.
With Motorsport Australia. Fair play to Mark Perry and his organising team, who have decided that they just can't run their business with the conditions that Motorsport Australia have put upon them.
Yep.
You know, more than anyone, I understand, not more than anyone, as much as anyone, I understand the need for safety in our sport. And I understand the need to continuously look to make our sport safer. But that cannot be at the cost of strangling our sport.
No.
You know, and it needs to be practical. And when you come up with recommendations, you know, there had to be. You know, Targa had a really, really unfortunate sequence of stages where over the course of 4 stages, 4 people were killed.
Yeah.
Dreadful, absolutely dreadful. But what we have to be assured of is the fact that every fatality leads to safer rallies, safer rally cars. Great. I get that. And I get the need to investigate, and I get the need to recommend. What tends to happen, and what happened with the last investigation into the accident that happened last year on Targa, was that they just didn't know where to stop. They came up with some really, really strong recommendations that make perfect sense.
Yeah.
Same panel, though, that came up with recommendations after the first lot of accidents, which beggars lots of questions, you know.
Yep.
Did they just forget about, or not come up with these ideas on the first one? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know. But they don't know where to stop. And the fact they came up with a ludicrous suggestion, an utterly ludicrous suggestion, that everyone who entered Targa had to do a 3-day training course.
Yeah.
Is out and out lazy. It's lazy, and it's being cynical. It's designed for some other purpose.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Why would Jim Richards, why would Tony Quinn, why would Jason White have to do a 3-day course?
Yeah.
Why? It is beyond belief. Nowhere in the world. If Sebastian Ogier, and he has talked about it, because I've talked to him about it, you know, Targa Tasmania is an iconic event in world motorsport.
Yeah.
In world motorsport. Any driver I talk to in the World Championship says, yeah, one day I want to do that event. It's a challenge. One day I want to do it. Sebastian Ogier, who's semi-retired, thought, tell you what, I've got this link with Toyota. I'll come across and do it in a Toyota Yaris. He's got to do a 3-day training course. Sebastian Ogier has to do a 3-day training course. They couldn't come up with a better system for accreditation. You're accrediting drivers than a 3-day training course.
It was like they were trying to tank it.
That is my point.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that outright, but that was the feeling. As I say, this inability to stop with recommendations.
Yeah.
And it was almost as if they were putting deliberate obstacles in the way.
Yeah, that's the vibe that I got.
It's like, the whole thing, the whole model for Targa works on competitive and touring. And they put ridiculous restrictions on the touring side of it. And you think, bang on a minute, was there a big accident in touring? Has there ever been an accident in touring? Was speed in touring ever an issue?
So lots of touring cars crash.
No, not touring cars. So the touring element of the tour.
Right.
The tour, the Targa tour.
Yeah, the Targa tour.
That's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Same one, touring cars. Not
yeah.
as in British touring cars.
No.
Cars that are on the tour.
Lots of cars on the tour crash.
Yeah.
For sure. But I'm not sure if there's been any injuries from that.
No, never. Because they're not going to...
They just lose the cars because they just slide off the road or something.
Correct. I've seen one or two, but nothing major. Nothing major.
No.
This major thing.
No.
Yeah. And it just... I don't know. Again, it was just indicative of me, to me, of, no ambition, to try and kill off tarmac rallying, which is what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
I think if we're being honest.
But yeah, 100%. 100%.
I heard the statement from, is it Eugene?
I know
And
the
he referred
statement.
to a couple of rallies which haven't run for years in his justification, and I'm going, this is nonsense. But tarmac rallying, let me tell you, is the lifeblood of rallying. Kids start rallying on single venue tarmac events. They start with karts, they progress to single venues because it's cheap. The minute you progress into forest and gravel rallying, it becomes expensive.
Okay.
So if you're saying that your aim, and they won't say this, but if your aim is to effectively cut out tarmac rallying from your offerings, you're cutting off the lifeblood of rallying. Because that's where kids start. That's where it's affordable. You can go and buy yourself a little car, put 4 tires on it, make sure it's got a cage in it, and you can do a 40, 50 kilometre single venue tarmac rally.
Yeah.
But before that now, you've got to go and do a 3-day course that's going to cost you the best part of, probably when you take into account expenses, time off work and all the rest.
Thousands.
4 or 5 grand.
Yeah.
Easily.
Crazy.
And it's just, for me, it's just short-sighted, and it's I don't know. I don't know. Rallying is a sport that for the future has unlimited potential if we get it right. If we get the rules right at the very top, it has got unlimited potential. We're entering into one of the most uncertain periods in motor manufacturing that we have ever entered into. They don't know where they're going. I interviewed Akio Toyoda, the head of Toyota, the other week, and they're talking about hydrogen. They are not invested right now in electric.
How good is that?
He's a realist. Akio Toyoda is a realist.
100%.
And he sees the issues with electrification, and he understands. And he understands there are issues with hydrogen, there are issues with electrification, but he sees the issues with hydrogen as being more easily overcome than the issues with electrification, and he is correct. But beyond that, we're talking about the death of the ICE engine. It's absolute bollocks. I met some guys the other week who produce sustainable fuel. Now, it's expensive as hell right now. Your fuels, I just put some fuel in my car before I came here, and I was shocked. $2.29 a litre.
It's insane.
$2.29 just round the corner
It's
from
insane.
here.
Yeah.
I only put in 20 litres. I was so shocked.
Apparently in New Zealand it's even worse.
Oh, but so this sustainable fuel will be upwards of $80 a litre for race fuel. It's a lot of money.
It is a lot, yeah.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But, the more fuel that they're able to produce, and the company that produce it for rallying have got major plans for a big production facility.
Well, because isn't the WRC already running on P1?
Correct. Sustainable fuels.
Yeah. Because I think we talked about that in a previous episode.
Yeah. So it's running on sustainable fuels. But on top of that, there were some guys, a really, really interesting character from Finland, and he was running the sustainable fuel in the guy runs a very, very successful business called Secto, and Secto is a big car leasing company in Finland. Young lads, very dynamic, very forward-thinking. And he Skoda rally car on sustainable fuel. And a couple of days after the rally, he gets a phone call from this guy. The results were published of the rally, but not the reason why he didn't do well. So he gets a phone call from this guy. This guy is completely properly Finnish. Doesn't speak a single word of English.
Yep.
And it's like, so you guys didn't do so well in that rally with the Skoda and the sustainable fuel, did you? And he went, no. And he then proceeded to tell him why he didn't do well. He proceeded to tell him exactly what went wrong with his car. And he's there to this bloke on the phone going, how the hell do you know all this? He goes, because it's obvious. It's obvious that that is what's happening with the sustainable fuel. So what happened with the sustainable fuels is it was burning through rubber seals. You were getting a lot of oil in the fuel and all sorts.
Yep.
And he said, and this is public knowledge, so I can say it. He said, I work in the nuclear industry. My business, my company, it's a garage company, literally a garage company, or it was. I work in the nuclear fuel industry, and we have to make a lubricant oil which is completely fossil-free. And he went, that's not possible, is it? He went, yeah, we produce it. We make a fossil-free lubricant fuel. So he immediately gets in his car, goes and sees this guy, says, right, we have to have a partnership here. So they are now producing lubricants. So all the lubricants in your car, all the oils, all the gearbox oil, the suspension oil, the engine oil, can be fossil-free, completely fossil-free. You run that with your sustainable fuel, and you have a car for the future. It's completely future.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, it is. You know, it is completely future-proof.
Yep.
And that is the answer.
That
Motorsport in the short term.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely the answer. When they bring the cost of the fuel down, when the lubricants are readily available on mass production scale, we have an answer. We do not have to go electric with motorsport. And interestingly, we had another meeting last week in Greece with Mohammed Ben Salam, who's the head of the FIA.
Yep.
My feeling is that certainly for the Rally Championship, they are moving away from electric. That it's more or less, the promoter has more or less said publicly, electric's not the future for rallying. You know, it is going to be a combination of sustainable fuel, of fossil fuel, of fossil-free lubricants, and hybrid.
Yeah,
potentially.
Because hybrid does make sense to a degree.
It's old technology, but it makes sense. It makes sense if you can bring hybrid into if you can make it more relevant for today's cars. It is kind of 30-year-old technology.
100%. Yeah.
But if you can make it more relevant, then hybrid has a future. But this headlong dash towards electrification of road cars and motorsport cars is wrong.
And it will end at some point.
It'll end badly. It'll end really badly, in my view. But I think there are enough mavericks out there now who are bold enough to stand up and say, no, like Toyota, Akio Toyoda. Now, he's not a maverick. He's a very clever man. But there are enough out there who are doing it differently and saying, well, hang on a minute. Don't listen to this nonsense that's coming from your urban elite, your metropolitan elite. Surprisingly, in England, the highest concentration of electric chargers is around Westminster, the House of Parliament. That square mile around there.
Right.
You come to where I'm from, Stoke-on-Trent, you try and charge an electric car there, you're in trouble.
Yep.
You're in trouble. I borrowed one from Skoda last year to go on a golfing holiday with my lad in Scotland, and it was a complete nightmare. A complete and utter nightmare. You'd plan it. You'd plan where you're going to recharge, fast charge it. You turn up and there's 10 other cars waiting.
Yeah.
It takes them 20 minutes each.
Yeah.
And there's 2 chargers.
Yeah. I heard a story the other day about if you stop getting fuel and you've finished fuel and you go in, do you take 2 minutes to get your snack bar and everything? Yeah. Well, what if the car's finished charging, but you're halfway through your burger, and now you take another 15 minutes? It just doesn't.
The whole thing just doesn't work. There's just so many things that we're just not being told about. No, don't worry about that. Well, yeah, we'll worry about it because someone has to worry about it. But we're not going to. You're a politician. We're not going to believe everything you say. Yeah. But no, I think motorsport has got a bright future. I think you look at these wonderful cars here, and what is it that is so intoxicating about these cars? It's a combination of things. Mm-hmm. They look beautiful. The Porsches are gorgeous, but you fire it up and it's got that distinctive sound. Yeah. It's got that smell, that wonderful smell, and it's all of these things in motorsport that gets us all interested and invested in motorsport. We can't chase this electric nonsense because it just doesn't work for what we're doing. No. It doesn't work for what we're doing. So I was very, very heartened to hear the thoughts of the WRC promoter about electrification, or the fact we're not going there, and the president of the FIA saying that sustainable fuel. Formula One has to go sustainable fuel because Formula One.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the rights holders don't have the rights to electric single seaters. It's another.
No,
it's another
exactly
law.
right.
It's
yeah.
a gag. With
We had that
extreme
conversation the other day. Sean was having an absolute go at Formula E, and I said, "Well, hang on a minute.
That's him.
It's a good thing that it exists because it means that Formula One can't ever become."
And they have to innovate. Formula One have to look at different solutions.
Yep.
Formula One have to put forward the other side of the argument. Because they're not following the Formula E or the Extreme E, which is all owned by the same guy, and the rights are owned by the same guy.
Yep.
They have to innovate, and all of these cars, or a lot of them, have come from motorsport innovation.
Yeah.
You look at the replica Subaru, the flappy paddles, the four-wheel drive. It was Audi and the Audi Quattro.
Yeah.
It came from rallying. The flappy paddles came from rallying.
Was flappy paddles rallying, or was it Ferrari in the Formula One?
I thought flappy paddles was rallying.
Rallying first.
I may be wrong, but I thought it was rallying.
Okay.
But we're entering a period of uncertainty in motor manufacture, as I mentioned earlier on. And rallying is the perfect test and proving ground for all of these manufacturers.
Yep.
The perfect place to test, and they can say whatever it might be, hydrogen, electric, sustainable fuel, whatever the propulsion method might be, there is no better way to say to the consumer, this is what we can do, this is what our cars can do, than rallying. So we're in a great position going forward if we get the regulations right. If we go all electric, then it's a gamble. It's an absolute gamble. And who gambles in life? Who gambles? People who can afford to gamble, they gamble, and people who are desperate. There are only two types of people that gamble in life, in my view. Those who can afford to lose the money, those who are desperate. And as a sport, rallying or motorsport, we're neither of those. Because we don't have to gamble. We don't have to take a gamble and say, we're going to go with electric, we're going to go with hydrogen, we're going to go with... We don't have to, because we can cover all the bases. Yep. Motorsport can cover all of those bases if you get the regulations right. And that's not easy. That is not easy to get the regulations right. It's not easy to offer. Dakar is the perfect example. You can enter Dakar with an electric vehicle, sort of, as Audi have. It's not really electric, but it's kind of electric. You can enter with a hydrogen car, if you want. You can enter with a hybrid. You can enter with a diesel. You can enter with a petrol car. And they have what they call equalization of technologies, which is a formula run by the FIA, which is unbelievably complex.
Yeah.
And requires enormous buy-in from everyone, as to when these penalties are applied. You have to be completely accepting, you have to have complete buy-in. And it kind of works in something like Dakar because the margins are a little more forgiving.
Yep.
Formula One, it would be difficult, for example, really difficult,
Yeah.
because the margins are tiny. Rallying, the margins are smaller, but it's not impossible. So you say to them, look, there you go, the World Rally Championship is about showing us what you can do, showing us how brilliant your engineers are, showing us how brilliant your designers are, showing us how brilliant your technology is, and, more importantly, how completely drivable your cars are, and how future-proof they are. And we have that opportunity to do that in rallying, but it requires a real visionary at the very highest level to say, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
We can make this equalization of technologies formula work. Right now, I'm not so sure they're so keen on it. But it's there. The opportunity is there. We don't have to gamble. Who wants to gamble unless they have to?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Geez, that'd be awesome. That would be
incredible.
awesome.
I think it would be incredible. I think we would have manufacturers, as Dakar does, have manufacturers falling over themselves to join our discipline. I really do. I really do. When you think of when four-wheel drive came in, they all wanted to prove four-wheel drive. So rallying was the place to do it. And yes, the budgets were astronomical. But let's not kid ourselves. All this nonsense of cost caps. Rallying has always been motorsport. The more money you've got, the faster you go. But there is shitloads of money being spent on the development of these cars. And proving these cars is all part of the development. It's all part of not a $100 million budget. It's a multi-billion-dollar budget to bring these new technologies and these new cars to market. And if it costs whatever it costs to run these rally cars, well, we go back to that, because we'll get the manufacturers who would rather do it this way than some other, obscure way that's nothing like as proving as rallying is.
Yeah.
But it does require someone to stand up and say, we can do all of this.
Man, that would be awesome.
Maybe the FIA. It may well be the FIA.
That would be... Imagine seeing electric versus fuel versus...
But as I say, you can see it now. You go and watch Dakar and you'll see it. You'll see this Audi, this incredible Audi, which is a combination. I went to, is it Wolfsburg, where the Audi Motorsport are based, wherever they're
Yeah,
based.
yeah.
I went there a year or so ago and had a look around, and it's the most incredible place. And they told us how it worked, and we saw how it worked, and we had Sven Quant talking us through it all. But I don't understand it. You know, you've got these DTM engine, you've got a DTM engine, and you've got 4 generators, and you've got a huge number of batteries. So it's dead torquey, and it doesn't run electric. The whole time you hear this motor whine.
Yeah.
It's continuously generating its own power.
Yeah.
To power its electric.
Yep.
Which may be the future. You know, the future for road cars. You know, the question about electric is the charge. Well, there's lots of questions about the components that go into the batteries and all the rest. But one of the most pertinent questions is charging capacity. You know, how the hell?
Yeah.
You know, when you walk down my street and there's 40 cars, how the hell, if they're all electric, do you get them charged every day? Well, what Audi are doing in Dakar is a self-charging car, effectively. They've got the engine running. So I could see a situation in the future where we have an ultra-efficient 400, 300cc engine, 200cc engine, ultra efficient, that burns a litre of fuel to make enough electricity to run 500 kilometres.
Yeah.
That would work.
Yeah,
You know, that would
100%.
work. And you're talking potentially your sustainable fuel.
Yeah.
You're talking, okay, it might be reasonably expensive for the sustainable fuel, but you're getting 500 kilometres out of it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's if you give these engineers, these are clever guys, if you give them the opportunity to prove that, which rallying could, they'll fill their boots. You know, it'll be like their Christmases all come at once. There are possibilities out there that are very, very different from this full electric nonsense.
Yeah.
Governments around the world are trying to sell us for a reason I'm yet to get to the bottom of.
I can't figure it out either.
Don't
Why
understand it.
is international governments worldwide pushing this so hard? I don't get it.
There's something in it.
There has to be. There has to be.
I mean, I'm not a conspiracy theorist as such. My dad was the world's biggest conspiracy theorist. Everything was a conspiracy. I don't look at life that cynically. But I just don't believe the shit we're being told about electric.
Totally
Because
agree.
it doesn't add up.
Yeah, no.
But I also don't get the fact that just about every government around the world is talking the same way.
Interesting, isn't it?
You know?
Yeah.
Don't get it. Don't get it.
Curious. It's
Anyway,
curious.
there are options. And as I say, I certainly in the last 3 or 4 months, I've definitely seen a change away from this, well, electric is going to happen.
Awesome.
To we're looking for something different here.
Yeah.
And it started with this sustainable fuel, with these fossil-free lubricants. And then, as I say, in Greece, we had this meeting and it was talked about that, you know, the new regulations that we're looking at for 4 years' time, 2027, will not be electric. They've more or less said that. So that will take us through to 2032 in the championships. If we're saying in 2032 we will have something that's not electric, that's actually quite far out there.
Yeah.
That's saying, we're looking at something different here. You know, governments are telling us that every new car we sell in the UK by 2030 will be electric.
Nah. Not a chance.
Absolutely no chance.
No.
You know, what do we do about, Africa, about Asia, about Australia?
Yeah.
You know, where you've actually got to be able to travel more than 300 or 400 kilometres. Can you imagine it?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh, that's madness. Anyway, there we go. Something I can get quite heated
Well,
up about.
well, let's hope that the landscape in Australia, at least, is going to turn on its head a little bit. I think, as much as it sucks that Motorsport Australia is being horrendous at the moment, I feel like it opens the door for the WRC to come in and potentially start doing things right. I mean, they've just taken over Tarmac Events WA, who just did Tarmac West.
Yeah.
Which actually, some of their stages, like closing down industrial estates and stuff, it was very... What's the town stage in Targa Tasmania called?
When they go through, Georgetown.
It was literally like
stage.
that. The onboards are wicked.
Yeah.
So that's happening at the moment.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. I'm saying WASA could bring back a form of a Tasmanian one again is, up with the fairies at the moment. But
No, it's not. It's going to happen next year without Motorsport Australia.
it is going to happen without Motorsport Australia at all, or WASA. I think are they self-insuring, or I don't even know what they're doing.
I don't know what they're doing.
But they've just gone
They're
bugger
looking at
everyone.
options.
Well,
Well, they've not gone bugger everyone because they basically said, bugger these over-interfering rule makers. We have to look after our customers.
Yeah.
So they've not said bugger everyone at all. And that's how it's got to be. That's how it's, and there is a massively important job that governing bodies do, a massively important job. And I respect an awful lot of what they do. But there is no question that the worst of motorsport politics you can find in governing bodies around the world. And Motorsport Australia are no different from Motorsport UK, from the people that run motorsport in America and Finland. Finland actually are different. They're quite an interesting bunch. They're very innovative. But politics destroys motorsport.
Yeah.
Motorsport is about, particularly what we do, rallying, and to some degree, some of the karting, the single-seater stuff that you do. It's about grassroots. It's about, giving youngsters something to get them off the streets, right? You've got a huge issue in Australia just now with bored youngsters causing real issues.
Yeah.
Get them into their workshops. Get them into their dad's garages. Get them building tarmac rally cars. Get them building karts. Give them something. Give them heroes. Give them aspirations. Give them reality. Give them actually something they can, it's easy enough to go and kick a football. Motorsport is more difficult, but give them something they can invest in.
Yeah.
And we don't see enough of that. We don't see enough of that. We really don't. And when we hear things, such as the recommendations or some of the recommendations that came out of the Tasmania inquiry, it just makes you think, nah, we're actually trying to kill this off rather than find a way of making it work.
Yeah.
It's sad, but again, I might be accused of being overly cynical. Might be. I don't know.
Look, I think there's still hope for the future yet.
I think there is, but I do also think that for motorsport, there's a lot of hope for the future, because Formula One, strangely enough, you'd have said 10 years ago, it's a dying blooming dinosaur. Formula One has shown that you get the marketing mix right, you get the whole combination right, and there is enormous interest in motorsport.
Yeah.
And Formula One is the most unattainable of motorsports anywhere.
Yeah.
It's just bonkers. I did a little bit of work in it. Wanky. It's completely fucking wanky.
Yeah.
Completely. But, this is 20 years ago. Liberty Media have come along and they've understood where the assets are in the sport. They've understood where the appeal is.
Yeah.
They've understood how to get people invested. The guy that I work with in rallying, his little sister, he's an absolute Formula One freak, and he's 25, and he will tell me everything about every race for the past 20 years.
Right.
And he knows which corner drivers went off on, which lap. He just knows everything. So he would sit every Sunday, watch his Formula One, and his sister would shout at him. His sister now pays a subscription to watch Formula One. She has turned around 180 degrees from hating it. And that's the power. That's the power of a well thought through marketing, strategic approach. And we lack that right now. Right now in rallying at the top level, where we're struggling a wee bit, and there's been a lot of open criticism of how rallying doesn't really, it doesn't connect with the people it should connect with. Which
It's a lot harder as an event to do that, though, because you can line people around a circuit and watch them go past 60 times.
And you get a result within 90 minutes.
The only way to watch a rally to the same quality of information that you get from a racetrack is to be in a helicopter. Yeah. And how many people can actually watch a rally from a helicopter?
No, but there are other elements of rallying that are way more entertaining. A day watching rallying is an adventure. It's an adventure. The planning, strategic approach. I'm going to get here to do 5 cars. I'm going to go there to do 10 cars. Yeah. I'm going to see the whole field there. And it's an adventure. It's an adventure you can do with your dad, your mates, your sister, if your sister wants to come along.
Yeah.
Your girlfriend, if you're lucky enough to have a girlfriend that's interested in motorsport. And these are the things that we have to sell. Rallying is an adventure. It always has been. And for kids, as I say, the kids are changing. They're changing in what they demand from their sporting media environment. How they consume it, what they demand, what they're going to spend their time on. And we have to say to the younger generation, look, this is a healthy, it is a safe way to actually spend your time. And it's unbelievably satisfying, unbelievable fun, unbelievable excitement. And we have to sell that. And you start selling events, you start selling the actual live product, and then you sell the digital product. And the two will come together. It will work because we have more assets in rallying than any other form of motorsport. More assets, without any question. As in, visual, scenic, storytelling assets. We've got more.
Yeah.
We have got more. It's there every time. There are stories on every road section.
Yeah.
You go on a road section. And, what we do at Dirtfish on each day before the rally starts, they all head out from the service area, not the pit lane, the service area. And they head out to the first stage. And you have what they call a road section. So it's your normal roads.
Yeah.
These are $1 million, €1 million, so $1.5 million rally cars.
Just on open roads,
open
public
roads.
roads.
And they'll head off to where the closed road is for the section. And they give them lots of time, so they'll all line up. And, and I'll go and just talk to the drivers. A bit like Brundle's pit lane walk, or whatever they call it in Formula One. I can talk to these drivers before they go into the stage, literally minutes before they go in. And you'll have 8 or 10, you'll have $15 million worth of rally cars sitting in a lay-by at the side of a dirt road in Mexico, Argentina, and Poland, wherever it might be. And you have people watching these videos going, I can't believe that the public has so much access to these cars. Because they do. If they just turn up and they stop, they can have a look around the cars, they can speak to drivers, get selfies.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about our sport. It doesn't happen really in any other motorsport.
That is so true.
There's so much access. There are so many assets. They come through the centre of cities, the centre of towns on the way back to service, and it is so totally sellable if it's packaged properly. That starts with the manufacturers, getting the manufacturer involvement, getting the right cars, then the promoter, the FIA are a hugely invested part of it as well. And they all come together with the right way of thinking. The media, I think, is the most important part, clearly. So that's what I'm involved in. But, we are on the verge, I think, of something big, because I think not only are the manufacturers looking for something different, I think the kids are looking for something different.
Yeah.
I think they're looking for something different. They play all these video games. Actually, there's a sport where they're doing it. They're not just playing it, they're doing it,
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've never actually thought about it that way, but you're right. The public access to rally is unbelievable. I remember the first Australian Rally Championship event I went to work at as a video editor. I was parked up at the accommodation with all of the other media team from Motorsport Australia. This was St. George.
Right.
So Queensland.
Well, that's the one I missed. What year was that? 2009?
No. Much more recent. 2020, something like that.
Right.
Yeah. And I walked across from the hotel to get breakfast and came back out to the side of the road waiting for the sidewalk thing to go so I could cross the road to get back to the hotel, and a rally car just drives past me on the street. I'm going, so you're telling me that I could be driving to work, stopped at a red light, and a Sebastian Loeb is going to pull up next to me at the red light in his rally car?
It's unreal, and it still gets me excited. 20-odd years of
crazy.
Seeing it. One of the most incredible things I saw, and I was in Greece at the weekend for the Acropolis rally, and every time I drive the section of the motorway, it reminds me that they used to have a road section that came out of Loutraki where the service park was, and they went along this motorway. So they did a stage around Loutraki. They then went along the motorway to the start of the next stage. Yep. And I remember coming along that motorway and following Peter Solberg in the Subaru, so it must have been around about 2008, and at 180 kilometres an hour, he's weaving this car on the motorway to keep the tyres warm. And I'm there going, fuck, this is unreal, this is unreal. It's going sideways. Maybe not 180, to be fair to Peter. He was breaking the speed limit, but he wasn't maybe doing 180. But he's weaving this car, and it's not weaving, but literally sideways to keep the heat, and then braking and accelerating and braking and accelerating. I'm thinking,
on the public road.
If you're Mr. Spiros, who's just come out, he's on his drive to work along the motorway, and suddenly you see that, you're thinking, what the hell is going on here? But yeah, just things like that. My first ever event was, say, Monte Carlo. And so I'd had that helicopter experience. That evening, we went up. There was a night stage up in the mountains above Monte Carlo. And we're coming down. There's a I think it's called the Alpes Maritime Railway line that goes from Nice all the way through this route Napoleon, which the stage of the rally was running along the route Napoleon. And we pulled up, and there's a railway line, and the railway crosses the road occasionally, and the barriers were down. So it was pitch dark, and we pulled up, and I was with Nick Fry, who was the team principal at the time, and one or two others. I think David Richards probably wasn't there. He was probably in his helicopter. But, I think it was Tony Gardemeister in the huge Skoda that pulls up next to us. I think, that's incredible. There's one. And then another car. And then, this barrier was down for about 7 minutes.
Yep.
So we had about 7 or 8 World Rally cars sitting next to us. They're all going off for a piss in the trees and everything. They know the line's down. And we're sitting there in our little minibus, and the barriers go up, and it's like the wacky races. Gardemeister's first, straight off down the road, and Solberg's there, and Mackinnon was there, and Burns wasn't there, sadly, that year. But
and they're all taken off like cut cats.
In the dark, on this mountain road in Monte Carlo, and I'm sitting there going, what have I got myself involved in?
Yep.
And it's just intoxicating. It is totally intoxicating. And You know, you look at it and you think, all right, nowadays you don't get that. You know, they take the road safety very seriously in rally.
Yeah.
And there are big penalties for.
But they
for
still
messing
allow
around.
you to drive these full-on rally cars
But they have
on
to
the
be
road.
road legal. They have to be road legal.
Yeah.
So they have to be taxed and insured.
Yeah.
You know, they have to be road legal.
Crazy.
So yeah, no, and it is unique. It is a unique sport, and it's why I say we've got more assets than anyone, because we do. You know, so there's no excuse for rallying not being successful.
Yeah.
In a digital era, particularly, there's no excuse. But we haven't found that magic formula yet. It should be every bit as popular as Formula One. You know, because it's more real. It's so much. Maybe people do want a bit of escapism. Maybe that's why. And it probably is why Formula One's become so popular, because people do, particularly in hard times, they want a bit of escapism. But when it comes back to the world wanting a bit more reality, then they'll all migrate back to rallying, because it's so real.
Yep.
It is so real. But, you know, it's not going to happen, unfortunately, in the next 12 months. But hopefully it'll happen in the future.
I'd love to see rally get back to it. Well, not many people know that in the McRae era, rally was as big as Formula One.
As big. Absolutely as big as Formula One.
Yeah.
And for a time, you know, Bernie Ecclestone owned both the rights.
Yeah.
And we talked about the issues with Motorsport Australia and perhaps wanting to maybe lessen the appeal of rallying.
Yep.
Exactly the same thing happened in the mid to late 90s. You know, Formula One, Bernie Ecclestone owned both rallying and Formula One rights. Formula One was taking a dip. Rallying was on the way up.
Yeah.
And Ecclestone went, actually, I've got more invested in Formula One. I make more money potentially out of Formula One.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You know, it was enormous. It was absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
We had, 8 manufacturers. We had millions of people going on the stages, which caused problems. You see those frightening pictures now of cars coming through Portugal, through Spain, and literally the crowds are parting. You know, the incredibly iconic shots of the Audi Quattro.
Yeah.
And the crowds are literally, and those cars
Insane.
would go back to service. And it happened many times where the mechanics would pick fingers out
Yeah.
of, people, because that was the thing. You touched the cars that went past at 100 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And quite a few people lost their fingers and they got left in the grills on the front of the cars. And sadly, there were some really, really nasty accidents, and that had to end.
Yeah.
The sad reality of motorsport is that it is dangerous, and it's no more dangerous than a lot of other sports. You know, my daughter was into horses when she was younger, and if she'd come to me and said, "What should I do, Dad?" I'd say, "Get in a rally car. It's way more safer than riding horses. Way safer." And it is. It is safer to get in a rally car, statistically, than it is to ride a horse. There are many youngsters who are paralysed, sadly, a number who are killed, horse riding accidents. Mountain climbing in Scotland, we lose an average. I think it's about 14 mountain climbers a season in Scotland who die. Rallying is one of those things where there are, very, very sadly, and I've been around for too many of them, there are accidents, there are fatal accidents. And that is part and parcel. You're a racer. It is part and parcel of what you do.
Yeah.
And it's one of those many, many, many considerations that you have to take when you go motor racing. And we can accept that. We can accept that. What we cannot accept are people going out for a day's entertainment and not going home at night. Spectators being killed. We cannot accept that.
No. Yeah.
And that happened in a Formula One event with a marshal here way back in the early 2000s. And it does sadly continue to happen in rallying. We do get odd accidents, but it is 1,000,000 times safer than it's ever been rallying. And that's so important. So important. But, but it's a dangerous sport. It's a dangerous sport. But what's incredible, Craig Breen, great friend of mine. You paid that lovely tribute to your friend at the start of the programme. I lost a great friend of mine, a rally friend, this year. Craig was just one of those guys. He was a naturally talented rally driver. One who never made enormous steps forward, but always made little steps forward. Incremental steps. Never actually got to the top of his peak. He was still getting better.
Yeah.
A number of podiums in the WRC, but just one of those guys, and I find myself thinking about Craig a lot, but one of those guys who, whenever you saw him, your first reaction was to smile and to laugh. He just made you smile and laugh. And then you would talk and he would tell jokes and he would talk seriously. And he was an incredible historian of rallying. He died in a crash at 32 kilometres an hour. 32 kilometres an hour. Now, we see crashes where they're doing 220 kilometres an hour. and walking away from it.
Yeah.
So rally cars are safer than they have ever been. Rallying is safer, but it doesn't matter what you're doing in life. There's always this, a percentage, a minute percentage chance that something just, unexpected, unforeseen, just unbelievable might happen.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's what happened with our Craig. And it was a tragedy, an absolute tragedy. But the sport goes on, and the sport will learn, even, particularly from Craig's accident. The sport will learn, and the sport will become safer. And that's what we have to hope going forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sad thing. I don't know how I got to that point. Anyway,
We've come full circle.
we got there somehow, but I don't know why.
Well, on that
note,
on that note, this is going to go for an hour and a half if we don't call it somewhere. So we'll call it there, and Colin's going to join us again for another episode. So this chat will continue next week for you listening. But I hope you have enjoyed this incredible chat with Colin. Thank you very much for coming, mate.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's a joy to speak to you.
I reckon these will be my favourite episodes ever to listen back on, I reckon.
Get lost. I've seen some of yours. You guys have too much fun with your podcast.
We have a lot of fun, yeah.
You have a lot of fun. It's an important thing, isn't it, with motorsport? It's got to be about fun. Sometimes you forget that.
Yep.
Craig never, ever, ever forgot that.
Yep.
That it was about fun and how privileged he was to do what he did.
Yep. Fantastic.
That was great.
Fantastic. All right, well, we'll see you again in 5 minutes' time / 1 week's time. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you soon.
I haven't brought a change of clothes for next week's episode.
Oh, neither have I.
Oh, man.